Hi, and welcome back to this free-for-all Friday edition of Focal Point on Thursday, 888-589-8840. Talk about anything you want to talk about, anything that's been in the news this past week. We'll be glad to let you weigh in on that. From Galveston, Texas, a Southeast Texas man has been sentenced to life in prison for slaying his pregnant girlfriend in gunfire that also left his unborn daughter dead. Now, this man pleaded guilty not to one count of murder, but to 2 counts of murder. His girlfriend was 24 weeks pregnant, and he shot both the mother and the unborn baby to death and pleaded guilty not to 1, but to 2 counts of murder because there were 2, not 1, human victims in that case. By the way, you might be interested to know who some of the pro-life people are in Hollywood. Might surprise you. Jack Nicholson is strongly pro-life, largely because his mom gave birth to him when she was a pregnant teenager and got a lot of pressure to abort him, and she refused. And so he says, I am compelled from that moment forward to be pro-life. Justin Bieber is pro-life. Of course, Tim Tebow is pro-life. Donald Trump has become pro-life. There's a famous model by the name of Kathy Ireland. She is pro-life. Patricia Heaton, who was on, what was that program? Home Improvement. She is a strongly pro-life. Martin Sheen, Roman Catholic, but he is pro-life, very liberal in his politics, but he's pro-life on the issue of abortion. And Ben Stein, the Ferris Bueller classroom teacher, is also pro-life, and country western singer Kenny Chesney is pro-life. And this probably will not surprise you, but you know they're having this trial for Kermit Gosnell. This is a guy that's responsible for murdering a woman because he botched a late-term abortion. Most of the abortions he did were illegal. He was having completely untrained people administer anesthesia. He was snipping the spinal cords of babies in order to kill them. It's a grisly, gruesome thing. Even one of the mainstream media outlets referred to his abortion shop as a house of horrors. Well, that trial's going on this week. You would not even know about that house of horrors in this trial if you were depending on ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, NPR, or PBS. They have not given it any attention whatsoever. One of the most important trials going on right now anywhere in America. Not a word from the mainstream media. Another reason why you listen to Focal Point on AFR. Now, let's grab clip number 2 before we go to the phones, 888-589-8840. This is Jonathan Capehart. He writes for the Washington Post. And remember that the 10th Amendment is the amendment that protects the right of states, that if the Constitution does not give to the federal government a power of action, then that power of action is reserved either for the people or for the states. Now, marriage is not in the federal Constitution. Marriage is not a power of action. Defining marriage for the states is not a power of action that is granted to the federal government. That way it would be entirely inappropriate and wrong, morally, ethically, and constitutionally, for the Supreme Court to dictate to all 50 states that they have to recognize same-sex marriage, because marriage is not even in the federal Constitution. They've got no right to define that institution for the states. That's a right that is reserved, according to the Constitution, under the 10th Amendment to the states. And this is exactly what DOMA does. This is why DOMA should be upheld. What DOMA does, the Defense of Marriage Act, is it protects the right of each state to define marriage for itself. It protects the states from being dictated to by another state, having its marriage policy dictated to it by another state. It's absolutely constitutional, and it is rooted and grounded in the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. Now, people on the left, they sometimes like the 10th Amendment when it suits them. Most of the time they don't like it because it interferes with the imposition of federal power. Here's Jonathan Capehart complaining about the 10th Amendment, and listen to how he refers to it.
But the interesting thing is, it doesn't sound like they're going to throw it out because they think that it's unconstitutional on an equal protection basis. It sounds like if they toss out DOMA, it's because of a legal technicality, because it tramples on states' rights, because the states, for the longest, for forever, they're the ones who set marriage law. And with DOMA, federal government swooped down and said, this is how marriage will be defined, and did it for the states.
Now, first of all, he's wrong. He's absolutely wrong that DOMA is the federal government sweeping in and defining marriage for the states. That's absolutely flatly 180 degrees upside down. It's precisely what DOMA does not do. DOMA says to the states, you have the right to define marriage for yourself. It's not the province of the federal government to dictate to you what your marriage policy ought to be, and we're also going to protect you from having your marriage policy dictated to by some other state. So there's no way in the world that DOMA represents the federal government dictating marriage policy to the states. It just defines marriage for the purpose of federal benefits as the union of one man and one woman. And this is absolutely appropriate. If the federal government's going to hire people, if they're going to pay them, if they're going to give them spousal benefits, then they have every single solitary moral, ethical, constitutional right to decide who qualifies as a spouse. But that doesn't dictate anything to the states. The states are free to have their own marriage policy if they want. If you work for the federal government, then here are the rules. Federal government pays your paycheck. They're the ones that get to determine what the rules are, who qualifies as a spouse. I mean, it's just a no-brainer. That's just logical. But notice that Jonathan Capehart refers to the 10th Amendment as a legal technicality. It is not a legal technicality. It is a part of the Constitution of the United States. It's no more of a legal technicality than the First Amendment. Jonathan Capehart makes his living based on the First Amendment. And if you were to tell him, hey, that First Amendment that gives you freedom of speech, that's just a legal technicality, he get right up in your kitchen. He get right up in your grill. No, it's not. That is a precious constitutional right. Well, the 10th Amendment falls in the same category. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to John in Louisiana. John, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir, Mr. Fisher. I got a little comment. It's about a law that I discovered, as old as I am. I'm just now finding out about it. You all may have heard about it long ago, and so I'm probably new to the game. But I've understood that there's a law that says it is illegal for practicing homosexual men to donate blood. Now, this, you might know about it for years, and I'm just now becoming aware of it. But my point is this. I keep hearing people that push the homosexual agenda ask the question to conservatives, what harm, is their lifestyle going to do to you and your life and the general public? Why are you so intimidated about it? I think the short answer is this. That lifestyle very well can contaminate the blood supply. Now, my point is this. The gays aren't standing up asking for, equal rights and to have that law abolished. It's like they don't even want people to know about it because it proves, to me anyway, that lifestyle is detrimental to people who do not practice it. It can become harmful to us, to those of us who do not practice it. So my point is, if the federal government has a law and they won't back down from it, some other countries have, but America won't, as thus far, back down from that law, and that is to say that they restrict practicing homosexual men from donating blood, then if they know that's, if it's illegal for you to donate blood if you're practicing homosexual, why would I turn around now and give you the right to redefine marriage?
Well, that's a great call, John. It's a great point, and you are exactly right. There is, in fact, I guess you could call it a law. It is the policy of the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. So this is from the federal government. And it's even stronger, John, than what you understand. What the FDA says is a male cannot donate blood if he's had sex with another male even one single solitary time since 1977. Wow. So if a man has had one homosexual encounter Since 1977, he is not permitted to donate blood, and it's for exactly the reason that you're talking about, John. They cannot take a risk that the nation's blood supply would be contaminated with the HIV virus. The risks are simply too great. They cannot put the health of the American people at risk. In other words, they can't afford to be politically correct when it comes to the nation's blood supply. So that's a great point, John, and it illustrates, the point that we've made, and thank you for the call. It illustrates the point that we have made is that there are many, many reasons why we should not give homosexual behavior special protections in law. And one of them is the enormous health risks of homosexual behavior. Now, the other two groups that are not allowed to donate blood is if you've ever taken money for sex, so you've been involved in prostitution, you've exchanged money for sex, you can't donate blood, again, because that lifestyle, the lifestyle of prostitutes, is obviously not a healthy lifestyle, and the risk of contaminating the blood supply is just simply too great. So you've ever exchanged sex for money, you can't donate blood. And if you're an intravenous drug user, if you've ever shot up with drugs, you cannot donate blood. So what's the FDA saying? This is not a part of the vast right-wing conspiracy. The Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, the American Red Cross abides by these rules. They're saying that homosexual lifestyle is as dangerous and risky to human health as injection drug abuse and as prostitution. That ought to tell you something. We shouldn't be sanctioning this kind of behavior, give it special legal protections in law, and we certainly should not be calling relationships built on that kind of behavior marriages. Focal Point AFR Talk, back after the news. Stay with us.